What's up, everybody? You are watching the Bar Bites podcast, the podcast for law students looking to life hack their legal careers and learn from the best and brightest in their fields to find out how they got to where they are today. I'm your host, Michael Goldfaden, founder of the plaintiff's personal injury firm Goldfaden Law, located here in sunny San Diego, California. Our guest today is Robert Hamparyan. Robert is the founder of Hamparyan Personal Injury Lawyers San Diego, and he's recently been named as one of the top 3 lawyers in all of San Diego across all practice areas. That includes being named the #1 personal injury lawyer in San Diego. In addition, from 2009 to 2017, he has consistently been awarded with San Diego County Top Attorney Award. And prior to that, in 2008, he was busy winning a little award known as the Trial Lawyer of the Year. He's a member of America's Top 100 Attorneys, a BOTA, and an inductee to the American College of Trial Lawyers. Robert, that is a mouthful of awards, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
I want to give you a warm Bar Bites welcome, and really just to let you know a little bit about Bar Bites and what it is and what it's intended for. So Bar Bites is intended for law students and young lawyers, and we're trying to give them a little bit of a glimpse into what it means to become a member of the California Bar, or little bites of information about what it means to become a member of the bar. And I think a lot of students are tuning in today because they follow super lawyers, they see that you have been named the top personal injury lawyer, and they see you on top of the mountain, standing there alone, right? And a lot of students, like we were discussing before, probably think to themselves, okay, I'm at A, and how do I get to Z? But what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to teach students really just how to take that first step and how to begin their journey. So I think the logical first question for me, and what a lot of our students want to know is, why personal injury law for you? What drives you, and what has driven you to become a personal injury attorney?
The journey started off getting out of law school. I was a young man at that point in time with a family. Started working as a clerk, I think 3rd year, for an insurance defense firm. And at that juncture, I realized that this personal injury aspect of law was something I'm really interested in. Except I figured out pretty quick that the defense side was not the side I wanted to be on. You understand, like everybody else, we have obligations for tuition, payment back to schools, and things like that. So I was sort of stuck in that Ferris wheel, and the obligations of providing for a family got me into that insurance defense world for a good 10 years. I did that work. I worked for the Auto Club, State Farm, and other insurance companies. I enjoyed the work. It was really good to learn on the dime and time of the insurance companies. They did have the ability to provide resources financially and otherwise, a lot of good mentorship. But I did know at the end that I was going to move on from the defense to the plaintiff. To sort of short circuit that, the quick answer is I always wanted to help out the underdog. I've always been the guy who wanted to help the underdog. So this is the opportunity for people like myself, yourself, and hopefully other upcoming lawyers, ladies and gents that are going to be doing what we do, to help the people that don't have voices.
You know, I think I hear that a lot from successful people in a practice area, that they have started on the opposite side of the fence. You learn all of the tips and tricks that the defense insurance attorneys use, and you can predict them before they even use them on you. Was it something that you always knew that you wanted to practice on the plaintiff side of the law, or did it just kind of fall into place for you?
I did actually know I wanted to be a plaintiff's attorney. I envied, in a way, in a good way. When I tried cases as a defense attorney in these courtrooms, I used to look over the other side, and I used to look at that relationship or bond between the plaintiff and his counsel, and the actual love and respect that they had for each other. I mean, ours was there. We had clients, we cared about them, we had righteous cases on the defense side, but the outcome was always, in my mind, here I am representing the insurance company. The insured had a policy. We know what it was. The jury didn't know about it, but I knew I was representing the insurance company in a way. I'm representing my client, but he had a policy that was more than apt to cover experts, witnesses, preparation, my fees, the firm's fees. It wasn't as black and white as a client on the plaintiff's side with his attorney working really hard to make sure that person is getting the justice the day in court. So I wanted that, and I knew that was the thing I wanted to have, and I was lucky enough to have it after 10 years.
Where does this desire to stand up for the little guy come from? I mean, were you like that your whole life? Did you stand up against the bullies at school? Bring us to your childhood a little bit. Let's go back to a young Robert Hamparyan on the school playground and tell me, what would your second grade teacher say about you?
Well, I was always the guy that made his mark. So if I didn't like something, I fixed it. And yes, I did stick up for the younger, weaker, smaller. I thought that was a challenge, and I embraced it. I liked it. I was in for a good fight. I've always been in for a good fight, and I still like a good fight. So it's a part of your character. I think it's a part of life. If you want the competition and you like to help people out, being a plaintiff's attorney is a badge of honor.
Did that come from someone in particular, that idea to stand up for the little guy? I mean, were you close with your parents, and did your parents kind of instill that in you, or was it someone else from your childhood that taught you that?
I think it was just growing up as a child, seeing good people around me. I can't point to one person per se. It was just it was family, it was neighborhoods, it was life. It was just, you do the right thing, you stick up for the right people, and you don't let people take advantage of others. And it's a part of your character. You either have it or you don't.
And you had mentioned on our walk over here that you were a little bit of an athlete growing up.
Right.
Did you start that very early on, or was that something that you discovered about yourself a little later on in life? I know that you mentioned wrestling and those sorts of things.
Yeah, sports had always been an important part of my life. It still is. I still, at my age, participate in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm active outdoors. I like riding motorcycles, dirt bikes, anything you can spend time doing outdoors or indoors as an athlete. It's a challenge. It's the same challenge we have when we're practicing as lawyers. It gives you that edge. It keeps you sharp. It makes you happy. That's always been the way. I think athletic endeavors have some parallel with the practice of what we do as trial lawyers or personal injury attorneys. It takes a lot of tenacity. It takes a lot of will. You have to be the person willing to spend more time staying later than somebody else was your opponent, looking through all the records, making sure you've dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and having that want to win. There is no second place in our business. You either win or you lose. There is no, silver or any other medal for that fact. So, and our clients, when we lose, there's nothing. We have to look at them and tell them, hey, we lost your case. And that's a big burden to carry.
Yeah. I know that we had talked about that as well. Some of this, the drive that I think is common amongst a lot of successful trial attorneys is, a background either in sports or in competition, right? And there's a difference between the two, because you might be a talented musician and you feel that pressure as a musician performing in front of a stadium full of people, and you can be a successful trial attorney in that way if you have that drive and that will to succeed in front of an audience. And I think it's something that we've seen before. We had a guest on last season who was he was the captain of his soccer team in college, and he talked about how putting a team together for his law firm was similar in a lot of ways to that athletic drive that he had. It's interesting for you to hear that you've practiced jiu-jitsu as well, or that you do practice jiu-jitsu as well. So I think you kind of have a one-up on the competition, because even if you can't win your case, you can still go out and beat them up afterwards.
Right? I have not done that, and I hope I'll never do that. But it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. And I actually agree with you 100%. You do not have to be an athlete to be a successful trial lawyer. You don't have to be a super athlete to be a successful trial lawyer. You could be any type of performer. You can be any type of person who's passionate about something they do in life. And like you said, you could be a musician, you could play the guitar, you could be in auditions as a theater person, someone in poetry, whatever it is that drives you. If you're passionate about it, You can translate that into passion with what we do here, and you'll be very successful at it. So I don't want to dissuade anybody out there from thinking that you have to be an athlete in order to be a trial lawyer. That it couldn't be farther from the truth.
I had a teacher in law school who described trials as, your role as an attorney was almost like a director in a play, because a good trial attorney, unlike Matlock and a lot of these old TV shows and that have a lot of these gotcha moments, a good trial attorney will have anticipated everything beforehand, and you're really just cueing people at the right different times. You're doing your direct exam, you're putting on some type of visual, you're doing your cross or your close, and you're using those same sorts of visuals. And we've recently had a member join our firm who went to film school, and I used this analogy with him, and I said, look, if you want to be a trial attorney, it's not that different. Do you find being in trial to be rewarding in the same way that it was for you as an athlete, or do you find it to be different somehow that you can describe to some aspiring trial attorneys out there?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more first with what your professor said. This is the analogy I give to most people out there. Trial work in preparation for trial, I felt like I'm a director in a movie, because you have to script who comes in at what time, how long, what they should say, how they should say it. The lineup has to be somewhat, if you can control the lineup, there are dynamics of experts and people not coming in because they can't, etc. But you have to show a jury, a group of people that are complete strangers to your facts and your story. You have to show them the story of many years perhaps, and a history of a life. I call it the life resume, all in 4, 5, 6, or even 2 weeks, and have them absorb it, like it, want to be on your side, and give you the number that you want. So to that, I agree 100%. I think your professor was very smart, and I'm sure he's a brilliant guy for coming up with that analogy. As far as how it's changed for me, if it is any different, it's a different type of an atmosphere. In athletic endeavors, whether it's a jiu-jitsu match, if you're on the mat, you've got whether it's 7 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, how many minutes you've got, you're training or you're competing, and when it's over, it's over. It's a short spurt. You put out everything you've got. The difference here is you've got 4 or 5 days, you've got 2 weeks, you've got 3 months, you've got some trials that go on. And the endurance part is the part that I think is very challenging, and the stresses that go along with it. When you go into a competition for sports, everything's again in spurts. You've got teammates in there, and it's a quick run, or if you're a one-on-one, you're doing that and moving on. In trials, it can drag on for days or weeks, and the sleepless nights and the preparation every night when the jury's going home and your friends and colleagues and the bailiff and the judge are going home, you're still working till 10 or 11 at night. But that's the invigorating part for me. I think that's the part that I think I shared with you before we walked in, was I look forward to these days, because when you're done with that trial and when you're successful for your client, you can look at that time that you spent with a lot of joy. You say, hey, I worked so hard. Now I can take off a couple of days and really do something fun for myself.
Yeah.
I've done what's right for my client, and I can enjoy it for myself.
I remember just hearing you talk about trial and those sleepless nights and everything like that. I remember an old mentor of mine in New Jersey once told me that the day that he knew he was ready to retire was the day that he walked into court and didn't have those butterflies in his stomach the way he had for the past 30 plus years of his practice. And I think that it's such a weird concept that you can continue to prep and you can be one of the most practiced trial attorneys in the world, and yet you still get that feeling every time. And if you don't get it, maybe it's time to hang it up, because it is such a beautiful and stressful and important thing that you do as a trial attorney.
Right.
And you're fighting for your clients, like you say, where if you get zeroed out at the end of the day, there's not too much to say after that, right? It's a zero-sum game in a lot of senses, and I think that we need more trial attorneys in this practice area in general in order to get some of that power and to keep that power from the defense. I want to bring you back a little bit to your childhood. Can you tell us, are you the first lawyer in your family? Do you come from a long line of attorneys? Where do you rank in the families of lawyers that are out there in the world.
Absolutely. I did not have any family members that are lawyers, engineers, physicians, just normal people out there. Matter of fact, I think my dad was not so lukewarm about the concept of his son being a lawyer.
How come?
He just looked at lawyers in a different way, and
Yeah.
I don't blame him. Everybody's got their own personal life experiences, just like we all do when we pick a jury. I'm very cognizant of that. We all have our prejudices in life, and he had his own. And I think you have to work at what you want to do. And I knew from the get-go as a kid, I wanted to help other people. I just wanted a venue and an area and some profession that I can help more people the way I wanted to help them. So law came naturally. I mean, I didn't want to be a physician, obviously, so I wasn't good with math. So I think that kind of narrowed it down to law. And I like the competition part. I mean, even if you're not competing as an athlete, you can compete to be an adversary to somebody else or another side and do right for your clients. So that's what brought me on to the law part.
I think that you touch on an important point, that there is this stigma sometimes that surrounds not only the legal practice in general, but very specifically the personal injury practice of the law. What types of things do you do in your daily life or your career that try to dissuade some of that public opinion?
Great question. I like all, I think, colleagues in town and hopefully all the good lawyers and nice people in the world, we promote our profession by doing the right thing to show that we're not the majority out there. We're not we're the folks out there doing what's right. We're not trying to sell you something, or we're not trying to just get a case and not take care of the client. The way I go about doing that is doing every case, taking care of every client the right way, so they're happy with the result. So they turn around and share their experience with other people. The other way is when friends and family interact with other people, and we're sitting in gatherings, hopefully, and social events, and when they ask me what I do, I talk about my profession with pride. I don't minimize it. I don't succumb to the legal jokes that I've heard millions of so far in my life. And again, I look at you and, you're entitled to that joke, and that's a pass, but I'm not going to sit there and give you another joke back about lawyers. It's not going to happen. I hold my profession seriously. I think, lawyers generally, for the most part, like every other profession, we do our best every day to help people out. So I'm not going to minimize it. I do that way.
It's an incredibly noble way to practice law, and a way that I wish a lot of other lawyers would practice. I think that part of the problem that I see is that a lot of young attorneys, they're faced with a problem where they would like to go out and practice on their own, let's say, and start their own law firm, as you've done. And it's difficult to get business sometimes. And I think people will either resort to trying to get business in ways that are just not ethical, and sometimes people resort to trying to get business in ways that are maybe not as traditional. Advertising is a great topic that I like to talk about with our guests, because advertising is one of those things that it's almost like you have these two different schools of thought with attorneys. Either you do not advertise, you don't put your face on billboards or TV commercials, and you let your reputation speak for itself. And then you have other attorneys who do those things, and both sides achieve varying degrees of success, but both can be successful. So can you speak to our audience a little bit about that, and maybe what goes into some of the decisions that are being made in terms of whether or not you should advertise?
Thank you. The most important part for me is actually taking care of your client. So whether your practice's emphasis is getting these cases through advertising or not is not the important part. I know some firms that do heavy advertising, but they also take good care of their clients. I think at the end of the day, whether you're getting 20 cases or 200 cases, or you have those in your office, you can have 20 cases and you could have gotten them through non-advertising ways, and you got them through, the organic word of mouth, etc. But if you're not taking care of these clients, it doesn't matter now, does it? So to me, the more important question is, how are you taking care of these clients? And also whether you're able to literally take care of the number of folks that you're taking in. I don't know, sometimes I think it becomes a little on the greedy side when you're handling 6, 7, 8, 900 cases. That's not only bad for the client, it's bad for our business and profession, because the clients are not benefiting from your time, they're not benefiting from your experience, they're not benefiting from anything. And they're going to be left with that marker that lawyers are just that. They take cases, they don't take care of the clients, and they just shuffle them along for discounts on the value of a case instead of working the case up, making the time for it, knowing the client, spending the money on it. You have too many of them, so it's a turn and burn operation. But to me, the most important marker is, I don't care if you're an advertising firm or you're a person who gets his cases in other ways, it's how are you handling those clients. If they're happy with you, it doesn't really matter to me.
And you raise a very important second topic within this now, where you're talking about sort of a volume-based economic system at your firm, where you're trying to take on as many clients as you possibly can versus some more boutique firms or firms that just take on a smaller clientele in order to work them up and get maximum value for the client. So it sounds like you're in the latter group on that. Do you have a general rule of thumb or anything that you practice at your firm where you say, look, no lawyer is going to be handling more than X amount of cases, or do you have a business model like that?
We do have some kind of a limiter or restrictor. We have 3 lawyers. We're a boutique firm, as you wanted to call that, and I'll take that. We do handle about 30 to 32 cases max apiece, because all of them are litigated. And when I say litigated, for the majority, 90% of them are filed, and we're moving forward. And we spend the time, money, and resources on each one of these cases. So I can't see myself taking on hundreds of cases. When I pick a client or choose someone to work with, it's got to be something I believe in, someone I really want to work for and serve. So it creates that special relationship that you want to have with your client.
It sounds like all of the decisions that you have made in your career, or at least where you are right now, are the exact decisions that every noble attorney would like to be making. I mean, taking on a few clients that you would like to work for, doing the right thing, becoming an excellent advocate for them in trial. And I know it probably took you a while to get to where you are today, but did you have a mentor or someone that you tried to model yourself after, whether it was in law school or in one of your first jobs? How did you get to this point?
Lots of subparts in there that I want to answer. One, to begin with, is I don't want to consider myself, quote unquote, noble in any way. I think I fell to my role as a lawyer because of the circumstances. I was a dinosaur, and I'll admit it, from the technology standpoint. So when I became a plaintiff's attorney, I was probably one of the last people to understand what the internet was and how it works, and the dynamics of advertising. And some of my smart colleagues that know how to use the computers and do that stuff, I have a lot of respect for them and their ability to do so. So mine was sort of by default, but more than that, I think it was the byproduct of realizing that I can't go to trial and try cases, which is probably the part that I enjoy the most about my practice, if I had a lot of cases sitting around and waiting for me, because every client deserves my time, and I only have so many hours in a day, and it takes a lot to prepare for cases and set them for trial. So I kind of did the balancing act of saying, I can either do one, which is a high volume practice, where I have to sort of move cases along faster and not spend a lot of time on them, because I can't. There are only some hours in a day where you're awake. Or I can take less cases that I feel strong about, that I get to know the clients and make sure get the most value out of them. So that was the genesis of my practice. So there is no hopefully looking down at anybody else who has volume. If they're taking care of their clients, I'm super happy for them. But as far as who I would attribute or give credit to, my father-in-law, who was a phenomenal trial lawyer, and he's a gentleman that I learned a lot from. His name is James Crandall, and he's currently a judge in Orange County. But I remember starting off as a young lawyer and seeing how he worked and how he treated others in courtrooms and how he treated adversaries in trial and his mannerisms as far as how he tried his cases. And you kind of pick and choose what you like and you take what works for you, and you don't want to be out of your own comfort zone or personality. But I thought his style really worked for me, and it seems to have done okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's your father-in-law that you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps so much, I think, when you have a mentor like that, especially someone who is family or someone who maybe just takes you under your wing at one of your first jobs, because, if you try to figure out everything on your own, if you don't have that person to rely on, I think that it just makes it a very difficult path to go down. And we always try to recommend, to our audience that they seek out a mentor. And I know that there are a lot of mentorship programs that exist out there. CASD has a mentorship program that tries to link up seasoned, accomplished attorneys with new practicing attorneys. And it's really, I think, one of the best things, at least for me in my practice, and I'm sure you feel the same way about Judge Crandall.
Absolutely. I feel the same way about that. I feel the same way about any organization that allows the younger lawyers, the ones that have questions, to be open about approaching them and getting mentorship. I've always made it a policy for me as a kind of hopefully one of the older guys in town to always answer any question from any attorney anytime, as long as I'm able to answer it. Meaning I'm not going to hold back. If someone calls me and they want something or they have a question, it doesn't matter if I know you. It doesn't matter if I've ever met you. I am not looking for anything from you. Just caveat. I just want to make sure that the younger folks out there that need answers to questions don't have to go and recreate the wheel, and they can just ask me, and if I know it, I'm there to help them out.
Yeah, that's the other characteristic that I told you. We try to pull out some characteristics from successful attorneys and really what makes them successful. I think the fact that so many successful attorneys are willing to share their time and are so generous with their time. Just you being on this show today and talking to our students is the perfect example of that. You don't know me. You didn't know me before this. And
pleasure to know you.
And thank you. And, just the fact that you can call up someone in our field and get them to come down and speak to the younger audience, I think it speaks volumes. So I know that we are appreciative of that. Did you have any of those sorts of mentors? Obviously, Judge Crandall in your professional career, but how about when you were in law school? I mean, were there classes that you took either in law school or internships that you were a part of in law school that influenced you and helped you choose this particular field of practice?
I can't say that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be brutally honest. I was very excited about just getting done with law school.
Yeah.
And again, I hope people are not listening to it and say, "I ditched law school."
We might have to edit this out later.
Yeah. I'm just trying to say that at the end of the day, I was just happy to finish law school and move on to the career that I wanted. I knew I was going to do personal injury. It just seemed like the proper thing to do. I didn't want to get into other fields like bankruptcy, wills, or trusts. It was just too static for me. It wasn't dynamic enough.
Yeah.
So personal injury or criminal law were the two avenues, and I picked civil stuff, and I'm glad I did.
Well, you now have a couple of kids that are in school, right? That you were talking about earlier.
Right.
Are you hopeful that you'll have some future attorneys in the family and excited for them to be following in your career footsteps?
I have two currently that are going through college. I have a third who decided that college wasn't going to be his thing, and I'm happy for that too. That's his thing. But one of them is actually in law school in New York. He's going to Columbia Law. And then the other gentleman, my youngest, Nick, is at NYU for School of Theater. And I think he could, if he decided to get into law, I think he could do a fantastic job. The only thing I know is I'm not going to ask them to come in, become personal injury lawyers. I think that's a choice that is unique to each person, and they need to gravitate towards what makes them happy, not what makes dad happy.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear the your son that's in theater school is kind of maybe going down that path where if he does wind up in law, he will have a career ahead of him there. We had a guest on this season who he does like an improv for trial class, and it's all about acting and improv acting in particular. Right. And it's he talked to us at length about the the similarities between improv and trial skills. So you can use so many different aspects from your own personal life if you want to be a successful trial attorney. And frankly, I don't know too many kids who are in their teens who have it all figured out yet. So sometimes you use that background and you end up in the same sort of practice area.
Absolutely.
Let's move forward a little bit and talk about some of your accolades. I know that I sort of listed them all out in the beginning of the show here today. Is there one in particular that means the most to you?
Each one of the awards that I received over the years, I'm very thankful for. But I think the one that I'm always reminded of, and it means the most to me, is when I received the American College of Trial Lawyers invitation and became one of that very elite group of lawyers. I was honored because the vetting process in that is second to none. Not to say that the other ones are in any way less effective or less important, but I think the American College of Trial Lawyers is what it is.
Can you talk to our students about that? Because I don't think
Sure.
too many people know about it, and I would love for them to hear a little bit more about it.
Sure. So the American College of Trial Lawyers is a group that's dedicated to promoting trial work, and they're, for the most part, trial lawyers with the focus of their practice being trial work. So they have to be vetted for as many trials as they've had, and the vetting process is not done through a membership. It's not one where you have to sign up or send an application, unlike the ABOTA or the American Board of Trial Advocates. The American College of Trial Lawyers is one where the membership committee vets you without you knowing. So someone from the group of lawyers that you've tried cases against, judges you've tried cases in their courtrooms, someone in that group will make the recommendation. Then the jurisdiction that you're in, whether it's Southern California, Central California, Northern California, nationwide, they have to meet and decide whether you are the candidate first, and then if so, they vet you then, and they go through every single trial that you have tried in every courtroom, and they talk to opposing counsel and judges, and only when they get hopefully the real good passing marks, not just average or just above average, you have to be really good at what you do. That's when you get invited to the American College of Trial Lawyers. So to me, that's the biggest honor that I can think of, because it was always the focus of my practice for all these years, is to hopefully be the better part of my career, which is a trial lawyer, hopefully.
Is that award, I mean, once you found out that you were nominated or awarded that actual award, is there a meeting? Is there something that takes place? I hear College of Trial Lawyers, and I think to myself, there must be a place that you go and you do all of this. So what is it like once you actually receive the award?
Yeah, the actual notice of reception of award was done through a letter, and I was surprised. I really was. I didn't know this was going on, and so none of us know. Whoever gets elected to this elite group of people gets a notice, and then when you are told, congratulations, you've been invited and accepted at the American College of Trial Lawyers, then they have a ceremony, and the year I was accepted into the American College of Trial Lawyers, the venue was none other than, I think, Maui. And I was there, and there was a class all over the United States, and I think there were 2 other California inductees along with me for that class. And mostly I was surprised at the age dynamics, because as old as I am, I thought most of the other gentlemen were, and ladies and gentlemen were, older than I was. So I was kind of happy to know I was the youngster in that group.
Right.
But that also shows what this practice is all about, and it's evolving in a way where in the olden days you tried a lot more cases, more people were being sent to courtrooms to try cases, and it's becoming harder and harder to get into a courtroom to try the case. Because the way the insurance companies put up the financial blocks, it's not that easy anymore. They put up 4, 5, 6 experts, so financially it's hard for the average lawyer to go out there and spend $100,000 to $200,000 on a case to try. And then there are the timeline situations where you got 3 to 4 years of waiting for a courtroom to try a case, and on and on. And then the big firms are cherry picking what lawyer can try what case. So back in my days as a young lawyer, I think 60 days into it, I was thrown into a courtroom to try a case.
Oh, wow.
So it's not that anymore. Now you wait your turn, and it's really hard to get into that number. So that's where the ceremony was. I was really happy to be there, and I'm very proud of that achievement, and I hope to represent them for years to come.
It's fantastic, and I think you raised an interesting point about young attorneys who would like to try cases who maybe don't have that opportunity. Was that one of the factors that went into your decision to opening up your own practice? And maybe bring us into that mindset. It sounds like you went right from insurance defense to opening up your own plaintiff's personal injury firm. Am I correct in that, or am I missing a few steps?
No,
here?
there are a couple of steps after.
Okay.
You're not incorrect, but it was kind of I moved on from the defense side because I wanted to be a plaintiff's attorney. I ended up working for a couple of law firms, plaintiff law firms, and I enjoyed the time I was there. I thought it was a great experience. And at the end of the day, though, you realize there is a time and place. You start getting to a position in your life where you want to do things your way, whatever that way may be. And I made the conscious decision at that time to open my own practice, and that was about a decade ago, and it's been smooth sailing since.
Was it smooth sailing the whole way? Because I think that part of where I'm getting to with this is there is certainly a financial risk in going to trial now, right? I mean, in addition to the hurdles, as you described them, that the insurance companies put up and these roadblocks, there are things that are unique to California that I have not seen in other states that I've practiced. One of which is the concept of the 998 and how both sides have an opportunity to make a statutory offer of settlement, where if you don't beat it, you actually have to pay expert fees and costs to the other side. So, was there a point when you opened your practice where you thought to yourself, okay, I need this much money in the bank in order to try my first case? Or what went into that first decision?
I was fortunate enough where I was able to save some money before making that move from working for other law offices to going on my own. And I saved enough to have a reserve for about 6 to 8 months. It wasn't an outrageous amount of money. It was not much, but it's a risk that you have to take. And I was lucky enough to take that risk, and the risk worked out fine. I'm not saying it's an easy choice to make, and I'm not saying that it's something that everybody should do, but we take risks in life, whether it's choosing an avenue or a practice, or choosing a profession, or there are risks in everything we do in life. And this was a risk I was willing to take because I thought I had enough confidence over the years doing these things. I had a skill set that I was happy to say, I can take a case and try it on my own. I don't need anybody else to work for or do stuff for. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, at least I know I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Plaintiff practice is not easy. Plaintiff practice is not for folks who aren't risk takers. I mean, it's just a risky business. The saying is, some days chicken, some days chicken soup. That's just the way it works. But you've got to be willing to risk it. And the reward of helping people out outweighs anything else. I think if you make it a practice to take a case and not do the work and lose the case, well, you do that 2 to 3 times, you're going to be out of business. But if you're putting all your effort, your energy into your client and your case and you're working hard, I believe that almost every one of us is capable of doing what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that there is that person who's willing to take that risk, and I think that those are sometimes, certainly from what we've seen on this program, those are sometimes some of the most successful people in the world are the risk takers. And it's just the idea that if it doesn't work out, that it can be really, really challenging. But for a lot of young attorneys and for a lot of our students out there, if you have that sort of thought or that feeling right now, try to hold on to it, because once you go out into the world and you start practicing and you have a salary, that's the type of thing that really can dissuade you from starting up your own practice and doing that for yourself. So it sounds like you made the leap at the right time, and that you kind of took into consideration all of the pitfalls, and it worked out for you really well.
I got lucky.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that I'm remiss to not mention would be the fact that if you are a young lawyer, if you have, let's say, a caseload, and if you are getting to the point where the case is going to be tried and you're pretty certain that it's going to be tried, you have avenues. You have, again, the mentorship program. You have lawyers you can talk with. You can come in and contact any, of the lawyers that have had experience that can come in and co-counsel the case with you. They take the financial risk with you, or they can take the entire financial risk, as long as it's the right case to try. Like if someone approached me, and I do this a lot with plenty of lawyers in town and are good friends and colleagues, if they have a case and I like the case, I like the facts, if I'm asked to co-counsel with them, I would take on the financial part of the case. I would take on the work and try the case with them, and the results are what they are, and we have a fee-sharing agreement, and it's legal by the bar, and as long as it's transparent and put to the client and he or she agrees to it, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, that co-counseling concept is something that I think it's probably not unique to California, but it's certainly done a lot more in California from what I can tell, from what I was used to when I practiced on the East Coast, is this idea that you can maybe team up with another law firm and bring in a big gun like Hamparyan Law who can help you in a case where if it's a smaller firm and you haven't been down that road before, it can certainly make or break a client's case and maybe even an attorney's career if they're able to really have that success. So that's fantastic that you are able to offer your services and your firm in that way. Did you have anything like that happen to you when you were starting out, or where does that philanthropic part of you come from? I
don't know if I'd call that so much a philanthropic thing. I think it's more, and to backtrack real quick, I did not have that when I stepped off the ledge from working with other plaintiff firms to my own. At that point in time, I did have my skill set. I'd tried many, many cases. So I had the confidence that I don't really need anyone to chaperone me through trial. And I did save a little bit of money, and I knew I had 6 to 8 months of income to live without literally starving and selling the car and taking a bus to the office. So I was okay with that, thankfully. And to that, I was willing to risk it. But it's not for everybody. It doesn't happen the same way. I think for most people, the realistic thing is, they either get out of law school, the market's tough, they get into a plaintiff practice instead of doing insurance defense, moving to plaintiff, or defense to plaintiff like I did. And because they're still a little green, law school provides you a lot of things, education and all, but the actual practice there is not the thing you're getting. So hours of practice is what you need. And when they don't have that, the co-counseling or working with other law firms is a beneficial win-win for everybody. If it's a great case or if it's a great client or both, hopefully, then the attorney, the seasoned attorney, whoever it may be in San Diego, can come in and help out on that case. And also, let's not, beat around the bush. They're going to be financially better off because they're going to win for the client. And if you win for the client, everybody's going to win.
Right.
So it's a win-win for everybody. And it's also nice for the younger lawyers to get the mentorship hands-on, not just someone answering the calls and saying, this is how you do it, and you should do your motions in limine this way, and you need 5 or 6 or the opposite. Instead of that, you're seeing it all happen. You're participating in it, hopefully. You're sitting on the meetings and prepping the clients for trial and the experts for trial. You're sitting on the depots. So on the next 4 or 5 trials, if you wish to take them on your own, hopefully now you've got a war chest, and then you've got the ability to do it if you've got the confidence.
That's exactly right. And I think that I prefer that way of practice as compared to on the East Coast. I'm used to seeing some of the bigger firms say, the concept in our field of practice is that the cream will rise to the crop, right? If you have a case that is beyond your capabilities as an attorney, or you don't have the financial backing to work up a medical malpractice case, let's say, hopefully you will refer that client to a firm that can handle it the right way, and they can work it up the right way, and we have a referral fee type of system that rewards good behavior in that way. I prefer the co-counseling method for those ideas that you just said, that you're never going to learn as a smaller attorney who doesn't have that war chest and all of those things that you just described, unless you do it for yourself and you practice it firsthand. I will disagree with you on one thing, though, where you said that you are not philanthropic, or wouldn't call that philanthropic. I see that you also do have a charity for an educational scholarship. What is the reasoning behind that, and where does that kind of come from?
Again, it's just doing the right thing. It's nothing more than that. It really is. I enjoy seeing people do better. It's not a socialist thing. It's not a political thing. It's just wanting to see in your own little way. We all do things in our own little way in life to do better for everybody else. And I think just the idea of being a plaintiff attorney, that's hopefully everything you need to know about the rest of us. We want to help each other out. We want to help our community. We want to help the people that are less fortunate. We want to help make the world a little better in our own way. And we want to help build the counter stigma for what a plaintiff lawyer is, compared to sharks, compared to this, compared to that. So in our own way, I think we're trying to do these little things to help people out.
Yeah, and I saw it on your website. I just wanted to direct our students to it. The Robert Hamparyan Scholarship Fund is awarded, I think, on an annual basis to students either at community colleges or universities, and it's a fantastic thing that you do in giving students scholarships, because probably the thing that I hear most from students when they graduate law school is, hey, I would love to start my own practice or to take risks or do whatever, but I'm in so much student debt that I can't even begin to think about doing something like that. And not only is there the student debt, but you also have this California bar exam that I think is I don't know if it's designed in a way to keep people down, but I have not heard of a bar exam across the country that's been as difficult as the California bar exam. And the pass rate is so low here in California that I find a lot of students who are in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt who are unable to even practice in this field that they've spent so much money on because it's so difficult to pass the bar exam here. You have any thoughts on that in general?
It's an all-in situation as far as the bar is concerned. I think when you make the commitment to go to law school, you've already said, that's it. This is the commitment I'm making, and I'm going to gut it out no matter what happens. I think the advice I would give to anybody who's going to embark on our venture to be a lawyer, whatever field you're going to be in, whether it's personal injury or whatever it is, to find an itch. And I say that it's ironic because I'm a personal injury lawyer, but I've been at it for about 26 years. And I got into the field of personal injury from defense to plaintiff when it was a time that people were doing well in it. And I still think it's a good, thriving area. I look, though, down the line and I see some changes coming in my mind. I see, the laws perhaps changing a bit. You look around the country and see how things are trending. There may be a change in the future. Autonomous vehicles, for those, brand new lawyers graduating this year and on, it's 20 to 25 years. I'm still practicing. And you could be in 25 years down the line doing personal injury, and the autonomous vehicles may start chipping away at the personal injury aspect of car accidents, because there is less of a margin of error in accidents and stuff. I'm not saying the cars are going to be off the road, but things are going to change.
Sure.
So I would advise anybody at this point in time to find other smaller areas, niches, things that you may want to specialize in besides personal injury, and diversify.
And you talk about some of the ways personal injury is changing. Do you have any suggestions on any of those niches in other areas that students maybe should start looking into?
Well, I mean, there are lots of, maritime law could be it. We're talking about, elder abuse. There are so many different sub niches that you can get into. Business litigation, bad faith, that's near and dear to me. I would love the opportunity. Anytime there's a bad faith case, I get excited. If there are any cases published on bad faith where someone was wronged by an insurance company, that piques my attention, because I think they're really righteous. Where do you get a case where, you're looking in the courtroom at the defendant and you're calling him or her, the corporation or the insurance company, out directly? In auto cases, we have a defendant ran into your car somehow, or your client's car, and you can't mention insurance, you can't mention who represents the driver. It's sort of the pink elephant in the room that no one can talk about in front of the jury.
Right.
But when you have a bad faith case and the insurance company did not do what it was supposed to do, there's a privity of contract, a first party bad faith here in California, that you can actually point to the insurance company and say, they're the bad insurance company. They did this, and that was wrong. And I think the jurors find it satisfying too, from their own experiences. I think most of us know that that's what happens with insurance companies.
Right.
So, I mean, you can get into that. I think that's a field that's always going to be a one that's going to be open for lots of years to come.
Yeah, and I know that there was recently a case that was passed down that talks about third-party bad faith a little bit, but it is a unique part of the practice, right? In that you think that your insurance company has your best interests in mind, and then when you find out that they could have settled a case where you might have $100,000 worth of insurance, injuries, or upwards, way in excess of that. And then you go to court and you sue, and you find out after the fact that you, as the defendant, have a personal responsibility to pay this judgment unless you give an assignment of rights to the plaintiff attorney. I mean, it's a lot of information that I just don't think you really understand when you first start practicing. But you're right. If you understand that area of the law, it is something that hopefully will be there and practiced for a long period of time.
Agreed.
Robert, I'd like to turn now to our part of the show where we can talk about some of the cases that either you are currently working on or cases that have meant the most to you in your past. Can you talk to us about anything specific?
Well, if we are talking about current cases, there are a few. Obviously, all my cases are important to me, but the ones that are usually unique in some fashion are the ones that I could point to. And currently, I have at least one case where it would fall generally in the gamut of a medical malpractice case, because we had a very unfortunate incident where our client's daughter, who was a very young lady in her mid-20s, died at the hands of an osteopath who was injecting her with turmeric. And she died on his table from a reaction to it.
Wow.
Through an IV. And he was doing that with the idea that it was supposed to cure her skin condition. When I initially got this case, it was looked at as a medical mal with a micra cap on it, which is a $250,000 cap. Along with the help of one of my very good friends and lawyers in the office, This case is now postured where we have righteous claims against the pharmaceutical company that actually sold the turmeric and the manufacturer that sold it to them, where the grade of the type of turmeric that was used was one that was not for personal consumption nor for medical purposes, but it was bulk rate and it was a grade that was not supposed to be sold to the public.
Wow.
So through motions and different pleadings, we're outside the arena of a micro case now, and it's a products case with negligence issues, and we anticipate hopefully going to trial on it in the next 3 months, and we're looking forward to hopefully bringing justice to the family that lost their daughter.
And it's so important for you to have uncovered that, right? Because as our audience is probably somewhat familiar with MICRA, if you are able to take a case and not have it have that $250,000 cap, you're able to recover so much more money for the family. And when someone passes away, I mean, there's really no way to compensate them. But if you are able to, make this a products liability case and award them something that could even begin to compensate them for the loss of their daughter, that's doing them a great service. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's hard to monetize or provide a number for a loss of life, and I think every lawyer struggles with that. Every human being struggles with that. And the simple saying is, life is priceless, but it's not worthless. All I can do is provide a measure of damages that's more than what the initial knee-jerk reaction is by the insurance company and the defendants when they come in and they basically lowball you to the point where you're looking at them going, if this was, God forbid, your family member, your friend, or someone you knew, would you look at them and say the value of your life is that little? So I can never get you the life back. I can never bring you a human being, but I can try and strive to bring the value of the loss to where I think we can do the best for you on that given date.
Man, those are tough cases in general. But I think that the way that you've explained it is probably the only way to explain it. That's exactly right. Robert, do you have a case that maybe is not a current case that you're working on, but a case that means the most to you, something from your past? Doesn't necessarily have to be the case that won you an accolade or anything like that, but something that just means the most to you.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had a lot of cases that are very meaningful to me with clients where we did really well for them. But I think the case that always goes back in my mind and is one that I take with me, it's got some sad memories. It's a civil rights case that I tried in Central California years back, and it was a police brutality case. It was back before the current sort of flavor in our nation about the police and policing tactics, and it's when things were not that clear about how some police officers conducted themselves. I had a shooting case with a gentleman who was had bouts with alcoholism, had bouts with the law in the past, but he called for what we call a suicide by cop call in 911, where he asked the operator to be shot to death. Broad daylight, and the police officers showed up and in a half circle, I think 5 of them, and it was captured on video, and that was the sad part, and it was an execution of sorts. The part that I remember about this case was how passionate we were about it and how passionate my team was about it. And I was told that it's a tough venue. It was a federal court case. It was a federal trial. And I wasn't willing to take that and go, no, I'm walking away from it. It
Right.
meant too much for me, and I had to try the case. And we went in that courtroom, and I think we did everything under the sun to win the case. And we won every single round of that fight. If it was a 12-rounder, we won by points. But the one thing we couldn't win is the jury. And that's the part I go back to, and I tell everybody, I go, we learn more about ourselves and about a life from our losses. And I think that one hurt the most. I've had many wins, but I remember that loss more than the many wins because it resonated. It showed me a lot about humanity. It was a failure of humanity. I remember picking a jury and turning to my team, and at the end of the day, I said, I'm really worried because everybody on my jury was either related to family members, married to neighbors with a police officer or correctional facility member. We couldn't get a break. And in a federal courtroom, you have to have almost a perfect jury. And going through that trial for about 3.5 weeks, it was pretty disheartening to know, as if it's an execution. You're walking into an execution every day. But we won the rounds. We just didn't win the actual fight by the scorekeepers. So that was one I will never forget.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, but here's what I remember about it that makes it very satisfying and near and dear to me. The family that watched this trial and they showed up for it, and the newspaper reporters were crying at the end because they thought we actually won this case.
Oh.
The newspaper reporters walked up to me crying. They said, we thought you're going to be the first case in Fresno to win a police brutality matter. And I said, well, I thought so too, except I didn't have a lot of faith in what we had for the jurors on our first day. So these are things that you remember. So if you ask me what means a lot to me, that loss still meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and you've also taught us an important lesson that I think is true, especially true in law, that you learn more from your losses than you do from the wins sometimes, right? And it's strange because you don't necessarily know what every juror's thinking. I know that you can interview jurors after cases sometimes, and when you have a win, you chalk it up, it's a win, right? You don't necessarily need to look into it too much, but when you have a devastating loss, it sits with you and it eats at you. And if you are a good trial attorney or a good attorney in general, you'll learn from that and you'll learn a lot of lessons from it. So I think it's an important takeaway, and it's probably something that has made you a successful athlete as well, right? Is that you learn from losses and you move on, and that's what makes you a better person at the end of the day. You also talked a little bit about jury selection. I'm just going to throw this in here because do you have any thoughts on experts in choosing juries now? And do you guys use anybody? You don't have to name names, but do you use companies in order to help you with that sort of thing at this point in your career?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. And consultants are great to have. You have to have a budget for them, and it has to be the right case for it. And I'm not saying that a smaller case doesn't deserve it, but financially, math-wise, it doesn't. It just makes no sense when you have, let's say, God forbid, like a $20,000 case or $50,000 case or $100,000 case. If the jury consultant is going to charge you for one day what amounts to about $15,000, that's a lot of money to spend on a case that soaking wet may be worth $100,000.
That should be going into the client's pocket because it's going to be a case cost.
Exactly. And the client, I don't think, is going to green light a case cost like that when you have other case costs that are a lot more pressing, like the experts that you're going to hire, 3 experts, an accident reconstructionist, biomechanical engineer, a doctor, and an economist, perhaps. That right there is about $40,000 worth of money. So you have to do the math with that, but I 100% agree. If the case is the type of case where a lot's riding on it, meaning financially, and for the client to green light it, I would be 100% for it.
Yeah. I think it is, it's something I'm seeing more in my career now as an essential part of some of those larger cases where I didn't always realize that early on. But, there are people out there who know how to pull out bias that if you are not an experienced person in that art, it's very difficult sometimes.
The focus groups, too, are really important.
Yeah.
I think to that, these gentlemen and ladies who are these experts that we hire for jury consultants, they also help us out beforehand to ferret out and weed out the low points, problem issues, problem spotting, how to word certain parts of our case that may be the weak parts. That is a huge asset. And again, it comes down to, is the juice worth the squeeze? Meaning, can we financially explain that to a client and be able to get the authority? Because you have to really talk to them before you spend that kind of money.
Yeah, and focus groups are interesting because I think that there are certainly ways to do that are, ways that are kind of more on the cheap. You can go on Craigslist, you can find people, pay them $100 a day and tell them your case. And it's something that is especially near and dear to my heart because I help coach one of the mock trial teams here on campus, and we spend so much time working on our case, and it's the same case file that hundreds of other schools around the nation have, and we tell our case over and over, but we try to tell it to as many people as we can,
Right.
because everyone will pick up on different things, and it's sort of given me this perspective that focus groups are that on a little bit of a larger scale. It's just telling your case to as many people as you can, and at the end of the day, that's what your jury is. It's people who are hearing the case for the first time, and you want to get as many perspective as you can on a case for if you want to be successful as a trial attorney, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would agree with that. The one thing I've discovered about focus groups is the value with them starts and ends at the dynamics of liability and how to phrase things and get around the weak parts of the case and how to strengthen the case theme.
But not so much damages.
Exactly. When it comes to damages, over and over again, I'm not the only guy that says this, but I think a lot of my colleagues and good friends that use focus groups routinely for every trial they go to, when you do 2 to 3 of them, you realize the numbers that they give you are just out of thin air. And because they don't have the ability to look at the evidence, because we have them for 4 or 5 hours max,
Right.
not 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 weeks. They don't see 15, different experts coming in for both sides, 7 of each, or something like that, and a couple of doctors in a partridge in a pear tree. They don't have a good grasp of the numbers.
Yeah.
So they, what is the case worth? $20 million. The other guy goes $14,000. And so you get an average of, I don't know what.
Right.
And then you get, you go to trial thinking you got the greatest case on earth on damages, and then you get surprised one way or the other.
Very good point.
If you're going to focus on damages, then you do a focus group on damages. If it's an all liability case, I would focus more on the liability. I think the damages, I'm more comfortable buttoning down the themes, the loopholes, the issues, the weaknesses, and capitalizing on the strengths of my case with a focus group than I am with the dollars and cents. That's something I think lawyers can, my colleagues and I always talk to each other about, what do you think, and what can we talk about to bring out that's something I think we can creatively do better on our own.
Yeah, it is funny. I hear Jerry Seinfeld talk every once in a while. Are you into Seinfeld at all?
I loved that series when it came out.
So the Seinfeld series, and I hear him talk all the time about how comedians have this thing they do with each other where they say, is this anything? And right before they do a bit, and I feel like lawyers do that sometimes.
Right.
Like, what do you think of this?
Right. But it goes a long way. I think for lawyers, when we talk about damages, yeah, they can be brutally honest, especially your friends that are not there to be yes men. They'll tell you, no, I don't know about that. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you need those people in your life.
You do.
All right, Robert, I'd like to turn a little bit now to the end of the podcast. It's kind of a fun thing that we do at the end here. Our first question here is, what's next for you? What are you most excited about coming up in your life? Anything in particular?
Well, I hate to set a timeline for the next chapter, but I think like everybody else in life, we all have a book. We start at page 1 and we end at the back end of the book when it says conclusion or end. And I know that's coming for all of us, including myself. And I do have other plans in life besides, doing this for the next 25 years, because I don't think I can do it for another 25. But however long it will be, when I'm done, I have ideas of perhaps segueing into projects like the Innocence Project, which is near and dear to me. I think if I can accomplish one last good act in my life, it's if I can free someone who's been wrongfully imprisoned and spending the rest of his or her life. If I can free a person who's in that situation, I'd feel a lot better about myself and about what we do for a living. We do a lot of taking in life. We're very thankful. I'm very thankful for being in a good place in life financially, and I've done well, like all of us do. I mean, we're doing good things and we help people out, but you have to just look around the corner and see some of the pain and the angst by human beings that are imprisoned wrongfully, and those are righteous cases. And if I can work on that, I think that'd be a great chapter.
Gosh, I think I need to show this podcast to my fiance when we're done, because she loves that The Innocence Project, and I think that's fantastic. We need talented trial attorneys to be doing that sort of thing. So that's fantastic. What do you have any? We talked a little bit beforehand about books. I like to get some book recommendations out there, but I probably sound like a dinosaur half the time when I ask for them. Any podcasts that you listen to? Any audiobooks? Regular books? What are you doing on vacation when you're sitting by the pool?
Yeah, what's up? Is it the objection to that would be lax foundation calls for speculation that I have vacations, especially in the era. But last year, for example, because we do so much reading in our practice, and because I do so much of it after work, I still take my documents home and I read them, whether it's a deposition or transcripts or pleadings or discovery.
Wait, you're a lawyer and you take your work home with you?
Can you believe that?
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Or you have it on your laptop like you and I do. But because I do so much of the work reading, my eyes over the years have gotten so much worse. So when I do my enjoyable reading stuff, I pick stuff that's fiction, and I will read fiction. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I would read Grisham books. I think I've read every single Grisham book when I'm on a vacation, because Grisham was he is still one of the probably premier writers on law books, legal, about lawyers, about cases, about civil stuff, criminal stuff. He has been and was a practicing attorney. I'm not pushing his books because he's a friend of mine, but I'm saying it because he has the most realistic scenarios when he's describing criminal cases, when he's describing civil cases, when he's describing objections and courtroom questions and answers and how it's done. He's so real in it that I can't find anything in it that I could say that's really objectionable, that's not proper, he's not saying it or doing it right. It tracks with what we do. So I enjoy reading something like that when I have the chance. But other than that, I try and literally look at my work. And these days, if I'm not reading, I'm not reading at all. If I'm reading something fictional.
All right, I have a good book suggestion for you when we're done here, and
Done.
It's also available on audiobook.
All right.
But it's in that same genre. Where can people find you? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook, Twitter? You have an email address, a phone number that you want to give to our audience?
So I've recently become a member of the 21st century with Instagram, but I think you'd see more of my hobbies as a person outside of law, but it's under Hamparyan Law. My email is robert@hamparyanlawfirm.com. I don't think I have a Twitter account. I don't do Twitter. I don't know if I have. I think I may have Hamparyan Injury Lawyers for my Facebook. So I am around. I'm in town. And again, I welcome anybody anytime to call me, to just say hi or ask me any question, with the understanding that there is no quid pro quo. There is nothing for it. I just want to be a neighbor and a colleague of anybody in town. I want to help people out. No expectations of anything. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Well, I can certainly speak to that. You are certainly extremely generous with your time. And honestly, one of the most, to use your word, righteous attorneys that we have had on. You really, I think, practice law in the right way, and it's been an honor to have you on as a guest.
Thanks.
I'm going to sign off now. You've been listening to the Bar Bites podcast with our special guest, Robert Hamparyan. I'm your host, Michael Goldfaden, saying thank you and good night. All right. Thank you so much, Robert. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.